In this video I want to discuss something, another element in the process of becoming fast at playing alternate picking, which is the movement, how large the movement of the picking hand is whenever it is playing a note. Because if you want to play fast, you also need to decrease the amount of movement that you do in order to just play a note. In general, you can hear this is a very small movement. So there's no need to play such a large movement when you can play the same sound with such a small movement. Of course, there's a difference in if you're just playing on one string or if you are moving through a scale that covers all 6 strings, for example. We'll get to that later. This is something that you can absolutely fix very easily just by keeping your focus on this element for a few weeks whenever you are going through your drills and scales and whatever. So what you could do is you could, for example, practice a 4-note per string pattern and then experiment on how little you can use, how little of the pick you can use to produce the same amount of sound. Actually, also another extremely important thing is the smaller the movement is, the easier it becomes to find the perfect synchronicity between right and left hand. So the larger the movement is, the more precise it has to be. So keep the movement as small as possible. You can choose whatever you want to play on the fretboard in whatever string, but in this case I just chose 7, 9, 10, 12 and back and forth on the G string. The other thing is if I choose to play through a whole scale, here I just play a B major scale. Then it's a different situation. Then there's, in every case, in the case where I move from one string to another, then there's a limit on how small I can make the movement, because I still do have to get across the string in order to play the next note. But whenever if I play a 3-note per string position, for example, on all the other strings I can still keep the amount of movement as small as possible. And another thing I added to that is whenever you move from one string to another, you should keep the amount of movement as small as possible, as well as when you play on one string, because if you make it a very large movement, there's also you increase the possibility of hitting the other strings. So you still want to keep the movement as small as possible. Take a look here how it looks when I play through a scale. I'm gonna choose another scale now, because so my fingers don't get in the way. You can see I can still keep a very small amount of movement here in the picking hand. And what you do is this is not something you do with a metronome or anything. This is just something you go through a scale and keep your focus on the picking hand instead of on the fretting hand. And so you don't have really to look that much. Just feel how close you can get to the strings. Kind of a Jedi mind technique. And the slower you do it, the more precise you can make the techniques. It's really nerdy stuff, but it actually will leverage the speed. Once you get this technique down, it will better the possibility of increasing the speed when you do stuff like this and get it down, get used to it. And then also, again here, if you experiment with a 4-note per string, just 4-note per string on a single string, just just experiment how little you can move the hand. It's very little actually it takes to produce enough sound. And remember, this is only about increasing your speed. So if you want to play something very Jimi Hendrix kind of stuff and very percussive and all that, this is another story then. And so this is just to get your speed down when you're playing alternate picking.